What's going on with everybody? It's your boy Singh, aka Coach Singh. Now, we're going to talk about one of the biggest things that came from this matchup, besides obviously the playoff implications, is the matchups on the field themselves. And today we're going to focus on Deommodore Lenoir versus Jaxson. Now, there's a lot of talk that's out there. You know, there's the box score, there's the matchups themselves. So today we're going to focus on the film, the times that they actually lined up in front of each other, which is only about 8 times. 8 times where it was an actual passing play going down the field. Now, we'll look at the film at the end of this. We'll talk about the numbers, the total statistics, and then we'll talk about the schemes that go into this, and then our overall take and analysis from it. Here we go. One of the very first times that they line up in front of each other, we're looking at what looks like a zone defense by the 49ers. Sam Darnold looks his way but doesn't throw the ball, so that's the first rep right there. So this is going to be the big one right here. This is going to be the PI that we saw earlier in the game. They're going to be locked up in man coverage and a cover 0. Let's take a look at what happens. Jaxson, as soon as the ball snaps, he's going to work his way up the field right here, and Deommodore Lenoir is going to give him a hit right here. As they keep going, they throw the flag for the contact that's happening down the field. They're going to call this flag right here for, I believe, the contact right there. I also think if Demo gets his head turned around, they might not be willing to call it. But then again, this official group is like if I'm not mistaken, the #1 most calling pass interference group in the NFL. So there's just a lot of factors in this play. But I will say, the big thing that I will talk about that comes from all of this is that you'd rather have a PI than a touchdown at the end of the day, right? Like as a defense. And on this specific drive, they end up not scoring. They end up turning the ball over. We see that play with the Cooper Kupp touchdown, where they try to throw to Cooper Kupp for a touchdown. And that's actually going to be the next play where we look at and see where Demo and Jaxson actually match up. Okay, this is going to be one of our best reps right here. We got straight man coverage at the top. There's no help either way. So here we go. Let's see what happens right here. It's 4th down. The Seahawks have got to score. They're bringing the motion in, and he's going to look this way to Cooper Kupp. But what I want you guys to notice right away is he's not even looking at Jaxson at all. That's not the #1 read at all in this scenario. He's already assuming he's out of the game and out of the play. Let's keep it rolling. He still hasn't looked at Jaxson. Now look at the technique that Demo has played. He lets Jaxson get to the inside, and then he plays underneath him, and what's going to happen is he's going to squeeze him out to this boundary, and Jaxson has nowhere to go. It's perfect coverage, and that is exactly how you got to do it. They end up throwing the ball to Cooper Kupp, turnover on downs. But the biggest thing to notice right there is that Sam Darnold wasn't even looking his way to see is Jaxson going to even get open. And we got Jaxson lined up on Demo's side this time. But the thing I want you guys to notice is again, Sam Darnold is not even looking his way. Look at that. He's just looking down here. Okay, this is going to be, I think, the best rep of the game right here, besides maybe that corner route that we saw where they actually line up against each other. Sam Darnold has an ample opportunity to throw the ball to Jaxson, or he actually looks his way, because most of the game he's not even looking his way when he's lined up in front of Deommodore Lenoir. So you see him right here, you see Jaxson right there, and look at Sam Darnold. He's actually going to look this way. Now before the ball snaps, you see Deommodore gets up here with the outside leverage, and I want you guys to see the elite coverage. He's going to press Jaxson, and he's not going to let him get to the inside still. Look at that. Even though he's working the inside and he had the outside leverage, he's not falling for the outside move. He's right there on the hip no matter what. Sam Darnold gets sacked. Elite man coverage on Jaxson, where Sam Darnold was looking to get him the ball. And honestly, it also makes sense that the Seahawks were trying to target Renardo Green. It's the matchup game at the end of the day. Almost the whole quarter has gone by now. It's the second quarter now with 13 minutes to go, and we finally see Jaxson on Demo's side. But this time, it's just a decoy because it's a screen, but he is running a route up the field. I don't know if you guys want to call it or not, but I figured we could just at least show the tape. Okay, so we don't see them line up in front of each other again until the 4th quarter. That means the entire 3rd quarter, Jaxson has been lining up on the other side. Now he's on this side right here. You see Deommodore is right there, and we're going to have what looks like is a cover 3 zone. And the 49ers are actually going to get a pass rush right here, which is ironic. But look at the coverage, tight right here up the field. No room for Jaxson to go. So he's going to have to throw this check down right here to his tight end out there and let him get in space. Great coverage by Deommodore Lenoir. All right, 5:49 left in the 4th quarter, and this would be the last time that we see these guys actually line up with each other on the same side of the field. So let's take a look and see what happens. You see Deommodore Lenoir is playing off coverage. Now he's going to come down and play press. He's right there squeezing on him tight. And look at that. Sam Darnold has to go somewhere else with the ball. That was elite coverage right there. I want you guys to pay attention to how tight he squeezes down on this route. pushing him into the linebackers where Sam Darnold has nowhere to go and throw this ball. I want you guys to see how tight he squeezes him down. Look at that right there. That is how you win the rep right there. Great job by Deommodore Lenoir. Now, I want to show you guys one rep where someone does not win it. Hold on. Okay, let's take a look at when they line him up on the other side, taking advantage of matchups up the field. You see there's a lot more space for him to work with down here. He catches the ball, gets a big time gain, whereas on the other side, it seems like it's a lot harder. Okay, so let's talk about some numbers and conclude our final thoughts and analysis on this matchup after watching them only line up 8 times in front of each other. So only 8 times lined up, right? 2 targets total. 1 was called for a PI, 0 catches, 0 yards for 0 touchdowns. All right, so let's talk about some key points real quick. Something I want to point, and I just actually noticed this when I was making this. They lined up 3 times in front of each other in the first quarter, 3 times in the second quarter, and then only 2 times in the fourth quarter. So we're looking at 6 times total in the first half, and then only 2 times in the second half. So obviously we see there's an adjustment. Maybe they're running the ball more, whatever, obviously. But they definitely are not going to his side. And that's kind of what I want to talk about when we go into the final thoughts, when we talk about those numbers too. The Seahawks are avoiding Demo's side, and most teams are doing this as well too. And let's talk about why from a schematic point. It's the Richard Sherman effect. When Richard Sherman played in Seattle or on the 49ers or whatever, but mainly in Seattle right at that time, people weren't trying his side. Now, he was one of those guys that basically plays in this scheme where it's this cover 3 scheme, and he's locking up his side of the field. And the biggest benefit of that is that someone like Richard Sherman and Demo, they're basically taking one side of the field away. The coaches don't feel empowered enough, or they don't run their scheme in a way where they can be like, hey, let's have this one guy that follows him because he's talented, because they don't know if these other guys will be able to play off of that. So it comes down to like Robert Saleh. Does he have schemes that he likes that fit where someone can go and follow somebody down the field? Or do they just sit in like the Legion of Boom style defense where the corner is elite and he's like, yeah, I'm just going to shut down this side of the field? But then there's the narrative of like, dang, he doesn't follow people. So it's the same basically kind of complex that we're dealing with Deommodore Lenoir, is that you might see a receiver walk into a game and have a lot of good stats and stuff surface level wise, but then when you go watch the film, you're like, damn, like they never really went to Richard Sherman's side. And the reason why I'm using Richard Sherman is because the scheme is similar, and that's also his vet. So we have to understand like the mindset of like the team, the coaches, the player themselves, what they're looking at, why he's even like talking like he's one of the best corners as well too, because this is nothing new. Like this is what Richard Sherman did back in the day, right? And so one thing I want to point out too is Hawks only had Jaxson run a handful of routes versus Demo. 1 target, really. I think that was it, right? Like there was only 1 target. Everything else he didn't target him. And then the second target was the PI, which I think is like, but even then you could give it to Jaxson, that's fine, but that's it. That's only 1 right there. And I think that's interesting. And so, and I don't think this doesn't mean that Jaxson can't do it, by the way. I'm not going to sit here and be delusional. Jaxson is an amazing player. I just think it's more about the coaches and the way they're attacking the game. And they obviously are trying to play to win. They're playing the matchups and whatnot. But I just think it's interesting because no matter what, they're still avoiding Demo's side, right? So they looked, let me see, one more note. Yeah, Sam never really looked his way. We pointed that out in a couple of those clips. A lot of snaps, he's instantly looking the other way. He ain't even looking to see if Jaxson is coming back to, is he going to be open? Does he have a move right off the rip, especially on Demo's side? Jaxson mainly gets open by lining up on the other side, which is smart. Take advantage of the matchups, man. Ronaldo Green's going to have a harder time pressing him, staying up with him, and ultimately that's going to produce the W. You're going to end up scoring more points, have better field position, and that's all that matters, right, at the end of the day. So, I think just to kind of conclude it all, Demo clearly has a belief in himself, just like Richard Sherman did back in the day as well, too, that he could follow any receiver, but scheme, like we said, is just not made for it. And it's not because of Demo it's not made for it, it's because of the coaches. Like the coaches, this is how they build their defense up. And so that's just what it's about right there. And one thing is very true, though, no matter what, Sam Darnold and the passing offense and Mike McDonald were avoiding his side. That's probably the biggest thing that stood out. Him and Upton Stout played phenomenal in that sense that they were running the ball. They didn't really want to throw to his side, and that's the respect that, even if people disagree or not, like the coaching staff is showing that with the play calling by how they call it play. So I think that's interesting right there. And the biggest benefit is that Big Demo cuts off a third of the field. And so when you think about the team being healthy, Fred Warner, Nick Bosa, Michael Williams, all these pass rushers, whatever, right? Then you add the fact that he's cutting off a third of the field. That's the vision of this defense. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video, man. It was a lot of fun to break it down and talk about it. Stay tuned, man.